Terrorist existing sensation known to Ian how has ever found themselves sinking in deep water or caught in the deep grip of quicksand. It is the immediate, visceral instinct to fight, to impose one's will upon the elements with cow. We are biologically wired to believe that survival is a matter of exertion, that if we simply push harder, kick faster, and strain with greater intensity, we will overcome the obstacle. Yet, in the specific physical realities, that very instant is the architect of our demise. The struggle does not liberate, it suffocates. This paradox is not merely a survival tip for the wilderness, it is the fundamental diagnosis of the modern human condition. We are a civilization exhausted by the act of swimming upstream, convinced that the tension in our muscles is proof of our progress. Now, let us explore the profound wisdom found not in adding more, but in letting go. We begin our inquiry here, in what we might call the ordinary world of psychological friction. It is the world where you currently write, a mental landscape dominated by the ethos of the grind, the hustle, and the relentless pursuit of self-improvement. From the moment we are old enough to understand language, we are indoctrinated with a singular, linear equation for life: effort equals result. If you want to be wealthy, you must work hard. If you want to be happy, you must try to be happy. If you want to find love, you must hunt for it. We view the universe as a stubborn jaw that must be twisted open, and the self as the solitary hand required to choose this. But observe the internal texture of your life for a moment. Look closely at your anxiety, your insomnia, your social awkwardness, or your creative blocks. What defines them? Is it the lack of effort? Or is it, in fact, a surplus of it? Consider the common plight of the insomniac. He lies in bed staring at the ceiling, acutely aware that he needs to sleep to function tomorrow. He commands his body, relax. He commands his mind, stop thinking. But the more he tries to force the state of sleep, the more elusive it becomes. He begins to worry up the fact that he is not sleeping. He worries that he is worrying. His effort to achieve peace creates a feedback loop of agitation. The ordinary world tells him he just to try harder, can't ship, regain a box pattern. But he is trying to smooth through a waiter with a vital iron. The very act of interference perpetuates the disturbance. This is the great irony of our psychological architecture. We possess a mind that is capable of turning upon itself, a tool that tries to fix its own operation while it is running. We live in a state of perpetual doing, convinced that if we were to stop doing for even a second, the machinery of our lives would collapse. This is the trap of excessive striving. It is the belief that you are a separate entity, an isolated ego encapsulated inside a bag of skin that must constantly manipulate the environment and your own interior state to be safe. In this mode of being, life feels like a resistant training exercise. We walk through our days with a clenched jaw and a tightened chest, holding onto ourselves as if we were holding onto the edge of a cliff. We are constantly getting ready to live, constantly preparing, constantly fixing. We treat the present moment not as a place to be, but as a problem to be solved. And because the present moment is all there ever is, we turn our entire existence into a problem. The philosopher Aldous Huxley, drawing upon ancient wisdom, termed this the law of reversed effort. The law suggests that when you deal with the subconscious mind or the autonomic nervous system, the parts of you, the breath, beat your heart, and generate your deepest inside conscious fart, is not merely effective. It is like tightening up the muscles of your arm to shoot an arrow. The tension destroys the aim. The more you try to be charming, the more awkward you appear. The more you try to remember a forgotten name, the further it recesses into the fog of memory, only to pop up effortlessly the moment you stop looking for it. We just happen. We ask our greatest effort, often the greatest obstacle. It is because the mechanism of trying presupposes a split in reality that's not actually exists. When you say, I am trying to improve myself, who is the I that is improving and who is the self that is being improved? Error 2 of you. is terra superior, controlling you that acts like a drill surgeon, and an inferior, unruly youth must be disciplined. This schizophrenia is the root of the struggle. We spend our lives in a civil war, one half of the mind berating the other half, the thinker fighting the thought, the feeler fighting the feeling. This internal conflict consumes a tremendous amount of energy. It is what we call overthinking or anxiety, but it is really just the friction of the mind grinding against itself. We are like a person pulling on their own bootstraps, hoping to lift themselves into the air. We pull and pull, sweating and straining, but last to why remain glued to the floor. The ordinary wall praised the sweating. It calls it ambition. It calls it grit. But from the perspective of the Tao, or the flow of nature, it is merely a misunderstanding of physics. The tragedy of this approach is that it severs our connection to the source of our own power. By insisting that everything must be achieved through conscious, willful force, we cut ourselves off from the spontaneous intelligence of the organism. We stop trusting our own nature. We become like a centipede who, upon being asked which leg he moves first, begins to think about it, tries to control the process, and immediately falls into a paralyzed heap in the ditch. The centipede's flow was destroyed not by a lack of ability, but by the introduction of the anxious, controlling ego. So, we find ourselves in a predicament. We are trapped in a web of our own making, a web woven from the desire to control the uncontrollable. We want peace, but we chase it with a stick. We want clarity, but we stir the muddy weather frantically, hoping to push the dirt to the bottom. We are caught in the paradox that the more we struggle to escape our suffering, the more we suffer. The harder we try to be secure, the more insecure we feel, because the very act of seeking security implies that we know of it. This is the state of the ordinary world, our world of caught tension and the exhaustion of the impossible task. We are trying to bite our own teeth. We are trying to see our own ace. And until we understand the futility of this attempt, we will remain caught in the loop, running faster and faster on the treadmill, wondering why the scenery never changes. The struggle feels real, the pain feels real, but the monster we are fighting is a shadow cast by our own clenched fist. So, we arrive at the threshold of the great Zalama, the central trail of our journey. We have identified a problem, our relentless grasping, our addiction to force, and the exhausting illusion that we must micromanage the flow of our experience. The diagnosis is clear. We are clenching our fist, and we are tired. The natural logical response from the ordinary world is to ask, okay, I understand. I am trying too hard. So, how do I stop trying? What is the method for non-striving? How can I force myself to relax? And here, the trap snapshot. You see the devil in the details. The moment you asked, how do I stop? You have turned stopping into a new project. You have turned letting go into a new form of holding on. You are now striving to be non-striving. You are trying to twist the very will that is causing the tension to cure the tension. It is the spiritual equivalent of screaming at a room full of people to be quiet. The volume of your command only adds to the noise you wish to eliminate. This is the psychological double-bind that drives the anxious mind into menace. We find ourselves in a hall of mirrors, caught in a recursive loop of thinking about thinking, worrying about worrying, and trying to fix the self that is doing the fixing. It is the predicament of the man who tries to be natural on purpose. We have all felt a social paralysis. You walk into a room, perhaps a party or a high-stakes meeting, and you tell yourself, just be natural. Be spontaneous. Immediately, you become a wooden puppet. You monitor your hands, are they moving too much? You monitor your smile, does it look fake? You monitor your words, what's that witty you know? Be trying to be a genuine person, you have become a simulation of a person. You are no longer living the moment, you are watching yourself try to live it. Is this trap so difficult to escape? We simply step back and let the system run itself. The difficulty lies in a fundamental hallucination regarding who are. We are culturally conditioned to believe in the ghost in the machine. We imagine that inside our heads, behind our there sits a little entity, a homunculus, a pilot called I. We believe this pilot is separate from the thoughts, separate from the emotions, and separate from the body. We believe the pilot observes the screen of the mind and pulls the levers of the wheel. When we have a bad thought, the pilot says, I didn't like that, let's get rid of it. When we feel anxiety, the pilot says, this is uncomfortable, let me fix it. But this separation is the root of the illusion. This I that struggles, this controller that you imagine yourself to be. It does not exist. Let us look at this through the lens of pure mechanics. Can a knife cut its soul? It can slice through a carrot, a rope, or a piece of timber with ease. But no matter how sharp the blade, no matter how skilled the swordsman, the knife cannot turn inward and sever its own steel. Ganan I see so. It can perceive the stars, the horizon, the face of a lover, but it can never look exactly at its own pupil. It can only see a reflection, a second-hand image. In the same way, the mind cannot grasp mind. The thinker cannot catch the thought, because the thinker is the thought. When you choose to observe your own mind to control it, you are like a dog chasing its own tail. The dog spins faster and faster, driven by the fury of the chase, convinced that the tail is just inches away, unaware the thing he is chasing is an extension of the thing that is running. This is why your greatest effort is an obstacle. You are trying to do something that is ontologically impossible. You are trying to lift yourself off the ground by pulling on your own belt. The sense of strain and anxiety you feel is simply the friction of this impossibility. It is the feeling of the mind trying to split itself in two. When you sit in meditation or simply in quiet reflection and you try to clear your mind, what actually happens? You treat your thoughts like intruders. You shove them away. You build a dam to hold back the river of consciousness. But water is heavy and thoughts are persistent. The pressure builds. The more you hold back the flute, the more energy you expend, until the dam breaks, you are swept away in a torrent of distraction. You tend blame yourself, I am not good at this. I need to try harder. Come, but consider the metaphor of the muddy water. Imagine a jar of water taken from a turbulent creek. It is clouded with silt, dirt, and leaves. You cannot see through it, it is opaque. You desire clarity. You want the water to be transparent. If you follow the logic of the ordinary world, you would plunge your hand into the jar and try to push the dirt to bottom. You would try to smooth the water out. But what happens? Your interference churns the current. The more you agitate the water in an attempt to settle it, the cloudier it becomes. This is your mind on effort. This is your mind on self-improvement. So, how does the water become clear? The answer is terrifying to the ego, yet obvious to the wise. You leave it alone. You take your hands off the jar. You place it on the shelf and you do absolutely nothing. You surrender the need to interfere. Joven time, the gravity of nature takes over. The heavy silt, no longer agitated by your meddling, drifts slowly to the bottom. The leaves float to the top. And in between, the water becomes crystal clear, so clear that you can see right through it to the world on the other side. This clarity was not achieved by force. It was achieved by the cessation of force. It was achieved by trusting the water's inherent ability to settle itself. We are terrified to do this with our minds. We are convinced that if we do not constantly polish our thoughts, we will go insane or become lazy or full of. We treat our own organism as a wild beast that must be chained. But this mistrust is misplaced. Your heart beats wild, your conscious command. Your lungs extract oxygen without your supervision. Your stomachs dish food without your managerial oversight. These are incredibly complex processes, far more complex than thinking, yet you trust them to happen on their own. Though you assume your mind is different. Though you assume your mental landscape requires a dicta. The trial in this hero's journey is not a battle against the dragon, it is a battle against the urge to battle. It is the trial of sitting with the discomfort of non-doing. It is the realization that you are not the master of the house, but the house itself. When we begin to understand that the controller is a myth, the struggle begins to evaporate. We realize that anxiety is not a monster attacking us, it is just a vibration of the system, like a shiver in the cold. When we stop trying to stop the anxiety, when we stop turning at you a problem to be solved, we starve it of fuel. Imagine you are floating in a river. As long as you float, the current carries you. But if you panic, if you try to grab onto the waiter to steady yourself, you sink. The waiter has no handles. The present moment has no handles. The mind has no handles. The more you clutch, the more you slip. This deconstruction brings us to a place of profound vulnerability. We are stripped of our armor. We have admitted that our will is not the engine of the universe. We have admitted that the eye we spend decades polishing is just a thought, flickering like a candle in the wind. This can feel like the death of the ego. And in a sense, it is. But it is a necessary death. For only when the illusion of the separate, struggling self dissolve can we begin to see what actually remains. We are not leaving you in the void, however. If we are not the struggling pilot, and if we are not the chaotic storm, then what are we? If we stop churning the waiter, what is the nature of the clarity that emerges? This brings us to the precipice of the return. We have seen that the hand cannot grasp the thumb. We have seen that the effort to control is the very chaos we fear. Now, we must learn how to move in this new world. If we are not force life, how shall we life? If we are not row the boat, how shall we get downstream? We are ready to discover the secret of the Tao, the art of sailing rather than rowing, the art of being lived by life rather than trying to conquer it. We are ready to replace the exhaustion of the door with the elegance of the flow. So, when the futile thrashing ceases, and the silt of the mind is allowed to settle, we do not enter a state of paralysis. We do not become stuns. Instead, we enter a state of alignment. We discover the third act of our journey, the ancient principle of Wu Wei. Often mistranslated as doing nothing, Wu Wei is more accurately understood as effortless action or non-forcing. It is the art of sailing rather than rowing. When you row a boat, you are using your unlimited muscular energy to push against the weather, dragging the vessel forward by sheer force of will. You are exhausted, and your progress is linear and slow. But when you sail, you hoist a canvas to catch the vast, invisible power of the wind. You do not push the boat, the wind pushes the boat. Your job is merely to steer, to trim the sails, to be sensitive to the currents. You are being moved by a force infinitely greater than yourself. This is the secret of the return. We return to our lives not to dominate them, but to dance with them. We see the state of being in the masters of any craft. Watch a great jazz musician in the throes of an improvisation. Is he thinking about the next note? Is he trying to play the right scale? If he were, he would stumble. No, the musician has stepped aside. He is not playing the instrument, the music is playing him. He is in a state of flow, where the gap between impulse and action has vanished. There is no I deciding to move the fingers move of their own accord, guided by a spontaneous intelligence that acts faster than conscious thought. This is the state we are invited to invent, not just in art, but in the mundane details of existence. To live in Wu Wei is to trust the universe that is right here, right now. It is to realize that the organism you inhabit knows how to live far better than you, the abstract ego knows how to drive it. When you are hungry, you eat. When you are tired, you sleep. When a problem arises, you do not worry at it like a zoc with a bond, you look at it, You understand it, and the action arises naturally from that understanding. You begin to operate with the physics of water. Water never struggles. When it meets a rock, it does not argue, it flows around it. If it is blocked completely, it waits, gathering strength till it can overflow. It always finds the path of less resistance, yet it is powerful enough to carve canyons through stone. By being soft, it overcomes the heart. By not striving, it reaches the ocean. This shift in perception changes everything. Intensity that once felt like a price and now looks like a signal that you have fallen out of rhythm, that you are trying to force a round peg into a square hole. Instead of fighting the anxiety, you listen to it. You drop the tension. You lean back into the stream. You realize that you do not need to hold yourself together. The universe holds you together. Gravity holds you to the earth, the atmosphere holds the air in your lungs, the sun holds the planet in orbit. You are supported by a web of forces so immense and so perfect that your personal anxiety about making it work becomes sluggable. You are like a passenger on a high-speed train running down the aisle, carrying their heavy luggage, thinking they are helping the train move faster. Put luggage down. The train is carrying you. As you integrate this victory, you stop viewing life as a series of obstacles to be overcome and start viewing it as a series of unfolding moments to be experienced. You stop trying to be a good person and simply allow your natural compassion to emerge. You stop trying to be successful and allow your natural interest to guide your work. The blockage of the ego is removed, and the energy of the Tao flows through you without obstruction. You are no longer a separate wave trying to crash against the shore. You are the ocean moving as a wave. And the ocean never gets tired of being the ocean. So tonight or tomorrow, when you feel the familiar tightening of the chest or the frantic spinning of the mind, do not rush to fix it. Do not declare war on yourself. Instead, try a radical experiment in trust. Exhaling the need to control. Watch the muddy water of your thoughts while stirring it. Wait. Breathe. And witness the effortless clarity that returns when you finally dare to let go.